Well, hello again, and welcome to another installment of CaaS Academy. My name is Christopher Lillian-Stolpe. I'm the CTO for Solutions and co-founder, one of the co-founders here at Tigera. And today we're going to be talking about continuous deployment, otherwise known as release management. There are other forms of release management, but we're talking about what's most commonly done in a container as a service environment. It's CD. So earlier, if you remember, if you've gone in the right order, we talked about CI or release manage or build management. So you've got a source code control system, say Git, and right now we're assuming you're only going to be building a master. You're only going to be building on master. So I've got some number of commits here. Then up here, I've got my CI platform. I want to pick a different color here. Got my CI platform. So my CI platform, whenever it sees a Git check-in, we've talked about this already, it's going to pull this code. It's going to do a build and test validate on this artifact that was committed. Some of the times, it's going to say, yep, it's good, it passes everything. Other times, it may not. But now, I have my CD system. So my CD system, off of these that were successful, comes up and starts a deployment process. It probably won't deploy a failure here. I suppose you could have it do it. So what it's going to do is this is now going to go off and deploy into your infrastructure. So as part of this repo, you have Docker files or whatever container runtime you're using. You might have Kubernetes, or you will have Kubernetes deployment objects or pod specs or whatever mechanisms you're using, service definitions, etc. So the CD, once the CI has said go, will then do the necessary plumbing to take this code that's embodied by this release and launch it into your CaaS. So the CD process will take the build that the CI produced. It will do whatever is necessary to get it ingested by the orchestrator, and it will inject that code into the CaaS. At some point later, a new release comes along, and it will inject that into the CaaS as well, and then following whatever instructions are in here. So basically my CI artifacts or my CD artifacts down here. So there's going to be files like Docker files, deployment specs, etc. Maybe they say that when I get a new deployment, I'm going to deploy 20% of my workloads initially as new deployment, canary deployment, and leave the 80 on the previous, and wait for a while, make sure that the orchestration system says they're staying up and running, they're healthy, etc. And then over time, phase out the old release. So over time, this release no longer exists, and now you're running all on this release. Wash, rinse, and repeat for everything that passes CI. Now, maybe you say that part of passing CI is all the tests got done, but until somebody manually vets it and says it's deployable, it doesn't get the green check. That's fine. But once it gets the green check, CD will pick it up and then deploy it based on whatever artifacts you have to control deployment. Another model might be, for example, that you have a development train down here, and the development train came off of here, and check-in happened there, check-in happened there, check-in happened there, check-in happened there. Or actually, not even check-in happened there. I got ahead of myself. There's another interesting model. And off of here, you have various development branches that move along. And commit back up here. And then commit back up here. And maybe there's another release down here that's also feeding this, but just to keep the diagram clean. So these development check-ins happen here. Maybe I'm doing CI on these as well. So, you know, this is checked, this is checked. Then maybe this is where my failure happens. Maybe this is the candidate model. So once I get a check, that then triggers a canary deployment, say well, maybe a 1 in 20 or whatever, up into the system. And if my canary deployment works, maybe I'm using Istio to do a canary deployment, maybe I'm doing something else, but at some point later, when I know that the canary is working, this release gets pushed into master here. The CI happens again, possibly, and now I deploy that same code everywhere, i.e. now removing the old version and promoting the canary deployment to be master, and that just keeps going down the road as well. You know, so this then deploys there, this deploys, well, doesn't deploy there because it failed, so somewhere, you know, that would be, this would now be on this branch. So that's another mechanism, but they're all the basic same idea. Once your CI process has vetted and says this works, you will do some deployment into your infrastructure, either as a canary or a full-blown deployment. And then if it's a canary, at some point later, make a decision, should this be promoted to being the default running image. Anyway, a little bit of an introduction to CD, which is the other half of CI/CD. Do keep in mind, many tools that do this also do this, but they don't need to be the same. Thank you very much.